Celtics TV play-by-play guy Drew Carter joins the show to talk about the team broadcasting with Scal, meeting Homer Simpson. Yeah, a lot right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Yup. Being down, be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Back to back, if I say it, it's stamped. Locked on number 19, the best one, the next one. Juice loose in your pool now for the next run. It's the C's, who else could it be? What they gon' say now? Screaming like JT, Karalis, recap the madness. Every game, every practice. Best daily pod, no cap like Brad Beckett. Clutch like Drew to KP, tap in daily. Prime time, dapping D White on the sideline. Raining Jayson, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast, right here in the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I got you covered every Monday through Friday, plus bonus podcasts after games on the weekends. So make sure you're subscribed so you can get this show dropped directly to your favorite podcasting app. We are on all of them. It's always free and available everywhere, even on YouTube. You can get to the comment section, share your thoughts with me. I'm John Karalis. If you're new to the show, I have been covering the Boston Celtics for about 20 years or so, doing it right now for Boston Sports Journal. Special guest today is Drew Carter, Celtics play-by-play guys, now in year 1.5. And he's here to talk about the Celtics, obviously, talk about his time here broadcasting, calling the games on TV with Scal. And we're going to start off with some of the virtual stuff he's been doing. Let's welcome in our guest. All right, Drew Carter. We're recording this before the All-Star game, so we're whatever happens. Hopefully, there's nothing that we should be reacting to. But I'll just dub it in. I'll do the old Conan O'Brien trick where we just freeze and I'll just like make the mouths move. And
wow, Jayson Tatum, he scored all 40 points in the All-Star weekend clincher. That was incredible. Team Shaq, let's go.
There was an old Saturday Night Live skit where like Tom Brokaw was going on vacation and they just made him record a bunch of stuff that might happen in case. So we could just do that. Be like, wow, Jaylen Brown threw down 360 dunks in a row. That was an incredible highlight.
Wembanyama dunked from the free throw line.
Without jumping.
Speaking of SNL, Giannis, is SNL 50? We're recording this on Saturday. Is SNL 50 tonight? You know?
Oh, is that tonight?
It's coming up soon. I've seen a bunch of content about it. Our boy Bill Simmons has done some podcasts about it, so I'm guessing it's tonight.
Oh, maybe. Damn, I'm looking forward to that too. I guess not looking forward to it enough where I would know exactly when it is. I fly by the seat of my pants. I'll later on tonight. I'll figure it out or I'll record it. It's nice that you don't have like some sort of animated broadcast to do. You have an opportunity to come here and talk to me. There's no Bluey hockey game or something that you got to call or.
Yeah, there's an idea.
That right?
There's an idea. You keep talking like that, John. You're going to be working for the mouse pretty soon. You're going to be.
That's right. That's right.
For ESPN. No.
All right. No. Hey, I used to be a producer in TV. I know how to play the game.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Maybe something we'll do. I've heard Bluey is terrific, even for adults. I have watched a lot of animated shows that are meant for kids and enjoyed them myself as an adult with no children, which means probably on a watch list somewhere for all the Big City Greens I've watched and Toy Story again and Mickey Mouse and Friends without children. But I do enjoy that stuff. So hopefully we do another one soon. My brother is he has 2 kids. He has 2 young kids. And so he loves Bluey, like just because he says there's stuff for the adults in there too. So yeah,
it's really the only go-to like animated thing that I know because he keeps talking about it. But you've done a few. Like, have you met Homer Simpson? Is he cool?
I did meet Homer Simpson. Now to take you behind the TV curtain a little bit, Dan Castellaneta, who voices Homer Simpson and has from the start, he recorded a bunch of answers for our Simpsons broadcast. So it'd be like, all right, let's bring in Homer Simpson. Homer, how do you think it's going out there? And he'd be like, no, I can't do a Homer Simpson impression, but he recorded all that stuff.
Yeah.
So we had that, locked and loaded. Toy Story, we didn't get a chance to have any of the voice actors on. That would have been cool to have like Tom Hanks and Tim Allen maybe.
Oh, yeah.
But that was actually during the writer's strike, I think. So we didn't get a chance to do that, but when The Simpsons rolled around, we could have all the voice actors on. Hank Azaria recorded a ton of stuff for us. I heard that, and for people who don't know, there was an ESPN, we put an NFL game in the universe of The Simpsons in Springfield at Adams Stadium, ATOMS Stadium, because the big business in Springfield is the nuclear power plant.
Of course.
So anyway, the whole thing was animated, and it kind of felt like an episode of The Simpsons. And what I heard, JK, is that they had like the same number of pages in the script of dialogue that they would have for a regular episode. So there was a lot of stuff in there, and thankfully it went pretty well. Game-winning touchdown was Bart to Lisa, defended by Homer, and she dusted him and went 40 yards for the game-winning score.
How do you do that? How do you do you have one screen with the actual game and then another? Like, how does that work behind the scenes? Can you tell us?
Yeah, it's exactly that. So we're in a VO booth. So that one was a 3-person booth. So it was me, Dan Orlovsky, and Mina Kimes, both of whom are big Simpsons fans. Mina is like a legit Simpsons head. She brought a book, which was basically a textbook on The Simpsons. She's watched it her entire life. Dan, also a big fan of the show. So we were in 3 separate VO booths. We couldn't see each other or like talk to each other in person. We had to do it all, via the VR headsets and microphones. The reason we did that is because we had the headsets on, and if 2 of us were next to each other, would have thrown all the technology out of whack. So we had to be in different booths, and we each had 2 big screens in front of us, one with the, traditional telecast, one with our telecast. We were delayed by, I want to say, 2 plays, which, gave the people in the control room, who are geniuses and extremely creative and the real muscle behind the show. Our job is to just not screw it up. It gave them a chance to anticipate the play, see if there's a big, like let's say Jamar Chase is about to catch the game-winning touchdown. Boom, replace him with Lisa Simpson. And so we kind of knew it was coming. And once the announcers, we didn't know that was coming. But once like one of the Simpsons characters replaces a player, you kind of have an idea that something big is coming.
Interesting. So you had VR headsets on?
Yeah, my personal preference, and I've done a few of these animated shows now, I like to only wear that when we're on camera, our cartoon characters. And then when we're not on camera, I think it's easier to look at both of the screens and call the game that way. They do have it set up. There's this, not to get too in the weeds, there's this Dutch company called Beyond Sports that runs the animation essentially, and they always send people to Bristol. So I've hung out with Nico and Tess and these people from Beyond Sports who fly over from the Netherlands, and they animate everything. They set it up so if we wanted to keep the VR headsets on, we could have, and basically just live in the animated world and watch the game and try to call it as if we were really there. To me, that was pretty challenging to like tell the different players apart, because outside of the Simpsons characters, the players all do look the same. And you can't really see the numbers from inside the headset. So long answer to your question, I prefer to do it without the headset on.
That's nuts. I mean, listen, I think it's a fun way to do something different, and like, but I just kind of can't believe we're able to do some of this stuff, and that they're definitely going to do more. If when they do a Bluey one, I just want to put a pin in this one so I can get at least some of the residuals, a little taste of the action. We got to get an animated Scal next to you. I mean, he's a big cartoon character sometimes anyway.
I know. I already work with an animated Scal. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get into that stuff with Scal and the partnership there and the broadcast. That's coming up when we come back. This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now, Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. All so you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. This is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at turbotax.com/guarantees. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Now, please go to lockedondaily.com and sign up for the new Ultimate Celtics newsletter. Put your email in there, and every Monday through Friday, an email will come directly to you with Celtics NBA fantasy coverage and links to all the great Celtics stories out there on the internet. So go check it out. If you miss a podcast, it's a great way to get caught up on things. And so check it out, lockedondaily.com. Click on that Locked On Celtics logo and sign up for the new Celtics newsletter. Now let's get back into the conversation with Drew Carter and his partnership with Brian Scalabrine. Well, let's dive into that a little bit here because, it's been like a full season. When did you what do you count as a full season? You count last year as a full season because it was kind of like but is you just saying like, this is just my second season? And
no, I count this as year 1.5. Last year was year 0.5. This is year 1.5. My first.
So last year was almost like a preseason, and this is like for real.
A little bit, yeah.
And they just happened to win a championship.
I know, yeah, and thankfully I got a ring, which I was surprised by. That must have been the last guy on the list, right? He did half the games. He's the new guy. Sure, we haven't won a championship since 2008. Give him a ring, whatever. So I think that's how that ended up happening. But talking about my ESPN assignments, I mean, last year doing the road games, I was actually way busier than I am this year because this season, since I'm doing the full slate, I kind of told ESPN, hey, I don't have a whole lot of time. I don't have gaps in the schedule. If we have an off day, we're traveling, or if we have a homestand, I've got other stuff going on. I'm filming a commercial trying to buy people's cars. So it's been actually a lot more low key in terms of, scheduling chaos, doing all of the games. And then in the off season, I'll load it up with ESPN stuff.
Sure. Those commercials are very important. Listen, I as a person who does, my fair share of like ad reads, I was incredibly impressed with the Blizzard commercial with you in the hat and the shovel. That was special. That was a special, I want to call you Blizzard Man from now on.
Thank you. That's a lot nicer than what other people call me when they see that commercial. Eddie Palladino, the PA guy at the Garden, he loves to give me a hard time about those commercials. Loves to.
Listen, I told you this privately. I'll say it on the podcast. I would kill to do a commercial like that. I would love to put on the ridiculous hat and shovel you some savings on your next, I don't know, Ford Tahoe or Chevy Tahoe or whatever it is. So okay, back to the basketball stuff. How's it been? How have you, has it gotten, I mean, you do this, so it's like, I don't know if it is difficult. How have you felt like filling like Mike Gorman's shoes? It's always tough being the guy that follows the legend. Have you felt any of that pressure? Or do you just put it out of your head?
I would say this year I feel a lot more comfortable. Easier probably isn't the right word because, it is more work from a Celtics perspective. And I now understand why people talk about like the doldrums of the NBA season. And, if you get slightly thrown out of your routine, your brain can shut off. Basically, we were just can't remember where we were, but I think it was Philly. And our pregame segment was different because the Sixers local show is also an NBC local show. So Scal went over and did a hit with them at the time that we typically do our hit. So our hit was earlier. I was actually with Abby at the start of our pregame show. And then I had to come back to tape the open later. The way we typically do it is pregame hit about half an hour before tip. And then 5 minutes later or so, the players will come out to warm up. And that's when we tape our open. But this time I was on at the start of the pregame show. So then I was back to the media room, prepping, drinking some hot tea, whatever. And I totally spaced on taping the open. So I'm cruising around, here we go. I'm going to go up to our broadcast position, ready to call the game. And our poor stage managers comes like sprinting at me like, Drew, we have to tape the open. Luckily, they were only waiting for like 3 minutes. So anyway, that's the type of thing that happens when you're just like,
yeah,
it's almost like highway hypnosis. You know what I mean? Where you're just like moving along, and all of a sudden, if something changes, it can kind of catch you off guard. So I understand that this season. But with that being said, I feel way more comfortable and at ease on the air. Last year, I was trying to do this weird tightrope between, not making it too different from a Mike game while also being myself. And Mike and I have pretty different styles. So I just felt like I wasn't actually being myself and also not really doing right by Mike. I was like failing at both when I was trying to do both. Now being myself and feeling empowered by Scal and, our bosses and certainly Mike, who's been incredible to me. I feel way better about the job. And I think we have a nice rhythm going.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I do watch, like, because of the nature of the business, we were talking about it before. I do cover a lot more games from home now. And so I do get some of you're starting to, like, I can hear some of your calls, like signature kind of like, have you worked on, like, I want this to be my catchphrase, I want this to be a thing? Do you think about like catchphrases, or do you just kind of like whatever flows?
Yeah, it's impossible not to. I mean, especially when you're following a guy with such a legendary catchphrase. I mean,
Yeah.
last year during Mike's final season, NBC had a thing, send us your best, got it. So
Right.
I'm thinking like, I better come up with something. So like, holy shit, this is iconic.
Yeah.
So I think it's impossible not to. I also feel like that stuff has to happen organically. So, earlier this year when we were in overtime against the Raptors, like, oh, why are we here? Anyway, and Tatum hit that game-winning 3 at the buzzer. I wasn't expecting that shot to go in, to be quite honest with you. So
not many people were.
I didn't have a chance to think about it. I wasn't like game planning. Here we go. So what I said was, yes, sir. And then we laid out and let the crowd kind of tell the story. And I've always really liked yes, sir as a call. I've worked it in, during games.
Yeah.
Vern Lundquist is one of my favorites of all time. He sort of did that a lot, like with golf, especially. Yes, sir was kind of his go-to. So I like that. I think that could work. I would love to come up with something completely original, but it's hard, man. It's like you got to find something that's really concise and sounds good and is yours, and you need to say it in a way that's unique to you. So I do think about that, but I think for the biggest shots right now, we're going with yes, sir.
I like yes, sir. I like it. It's very understated. I like a quick, like, not like yes, sir, just that one yes, sir. Like,
Yeah, it's one word.
One word.
No space.
And no space. 2 S's. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, and there are other things too. Like, we have a million nicknames for Peyton Pritchard, so that's obviously specific to him. Like cookies and cream stuff with Jaylen and KP, Luke Cornett stuff. I think that's really the pleasure of doing all the games, John, is like when I go 2 weeks between a road game last season, I kind of feel like we would lose some momentum. And, if there's something that Scal and I were joking about in the previous game, people aren't going to remember that the next time. But if we reference something we talked about 2 nights ago, I think it's a little bit easier to kind of build those narratives throughout the season. And, the signature calls or nicknames or whatever, I think that kind of goes hand in hand with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And like building it's just like basketball. It's you building the rapport with, a teammate. And if you're only playing sporadically with the teammate, there's going to be like a couple of like conversations that you have, I'm sure off the air, be like, let me talk,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll talk about the Celtics. We'll talk about being a homer, quote unquote, there with Drew when we come back. Today's show is brought to you by Hungry Root. When it comes to grocery shopping and meal planning, we know we all have the same problem. You don't have time, work, life, trying to eat healthier, constantly feeling stressed, going to the grocery store and buying things that you don't need. And then you come home with no time to actually cook all of the stuff that you bought. So sticking to your health goals, super struggle. But everything can change with Hungry Root. It's a game changer, and it's the easiest way to eat healthy without all the stress. With Hungry Root, it's like having a personal shopper and a nutritionist all in one. They take care of the grocery shopping, recommending meals, groceries based on your tastes and health goals, from anti-inflammatory foods to high protein, gluten-free options. And the best part, every meal is ready in 15 minutes or less. Quick, healthy meals that actually taste great, all delivered straight to your door. It's a huge time saver, and it makes healthy eating so much simpler. You're going to love Hungry Root. Go to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA. For a limited time, you'll get 40% off your first box and a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code LockedOnNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA, code LockedOnNBA to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA, code LockedOnNBA. Don't miss out. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On NBA Game Night. It's 7 days a week covering the league, everything that you want from every game. So check it out. And then Monday through Friday, Locked On NBA on the same feed gives you in-depth conversations on all the big stories. So check out Locked On NBA. I'm on Friday nights with Jake Madison. So go check that out. And now let's get back to wrap up the conversation here with Drew Carter. So, all right, let's go on the court. Let's go on the court, because you have been able to be around this team. You talk about the doldrums. Like, you get to see it a little closer than the rest of us. Is that really just what this was over the past? You think it was just hey, these guys do not look like their normal selves, and a lot of people tend to be worried. I'm not one of them. I've just put it out there for everybody. Again, like I think they're totally fine. But from your vantage point, did you see anything that you're like,
Well, I would say, first of all, right now, I feel really good about the team and how they've been playing. 7 of 8 heading into the All-Star break, a couple of blowouts in there. Really, a lot of the games in the last couple weeks have felt like games we saw last season.
Yeah.
When the team was basically rampaging through the NBA. I think it's a confluence of factors, John, to use a term that I would love to use on a broadcast with Scal, just so we could be like, man, why do you have to say something like that? Just why do you have to nerd it up?
A casual confluence in there.
Yeah, it's a confluence of factors. Basically, a bunch of different things happen. Number one, comparing it to last season is not going to be fair, because the Celtics won the East by 14 games last year, which I believe is a record for the Eastern Conference. So ran away with it, never were really challenged, and that continued into the playoffs. So comparing it to last year, our expectations are going to be out of whack. 2, there are other really good teams in the league right now. Oklahoma City and Cleveland. There weren't teams keeping pace with the Celtics last season. Now there are. Now there are teams actually, ahead of them in the standings. So people freak out over that. Even though the Celtics, if you check the metrics, are basically the same team as they were last year in terms of net rating. So, and we're top 5 on both sides of the floor again. Not both sides of the ball, because a circle or a sphere doesn't have sides. Both sides of the floor. I hate when people say both sides of the ball. It doesn't make any sense. So those 2 things in terms of how people react to the games, I think are important to keep in mind. As far as the team itself, I do think there were a couple different things to play. Number one, Porzingis coming back. Obviously, the Celtics have a higher ceiling with him, and I think we're seeing them be better with him now that he's kind of back in the fold. But at the start, it was just clunky. He is a mismatch for everybody. He is a serious math problem for other teams. If he sets a screen up top, what do you want to do with that? Do you want to be in the drop and let Tatum shoot or cross you up? Do you want to, switch it and let a guy who's a foot shorter than KP try to defend him? That really has not worked for other teams if you look at KP's post-up numbers. But I think the Celtics force-fed him a little bit early when he was coming back, and it just felt like it threw the rhythm off. Because remember, before he came back, first month of the season, the Celtics were kind of blitzing teams, and it did feel like last year. And then that, you change a rotation like that. stuff just sort of gets out of whack. And the last factor is, well, one of them is just shooting, as boring as it sounds. Celtics missing shots, other guys making shots. And then the last thing is, I just think it's human nature. If you reach the mountaintop last season, you finally break through, to expect the same level of hunger and focus the next season, to me, is a little unreasonable. I think anybody can relate to that. I certainly relate to it in my job. And I'll give you an example. I had a terrible interview with Missoula. I think it was in LA. And Joe's always a challenge. You know that, John. But I think it's a fun challenge. I actually think it makes you better at whatever you do. So I love doing those one-on-one interviews. And people are always surprised to hear me say that, because they seem a little bit awkward when we're airing them on TV. But that's what Joe wants, because he wants to put you in a corner. He wants to challenge you. But we had a bad interview where I really wasn't prepared for it, and I didn't really know what I wanted to ask. And with Missoula, you better have facts to back up your question if you're going to ask a question that's sort of leading. And I just didn't that day. And so the next interview, what do you think I did? I was fucking ready to go. I'm sorry if I can't swear. I was ready to go, dude. Locked and loaded. And that's what happened. I think that's why the Celtics are 15-1 after a loss. And I think that's why sometimes, when they're at home and they just won, sometimes they take their foot off the gas a little bit, because that's human nature. But lately, it's looked really good.
Yeah. And yes, I will have to edit out your potty mouth. That's okay. That's okay. Listen, I tell people all the time, if I didn't have the Locked On filter on this show, it'd be a much different show. But it's okay. But yeah, no, I agree. It's funny to hear you say that, and I'm glad you said all that, because it's literally everything that I've said on this podcast. To even, I didn't use the confluence word, but I did say a lot of things happening at the same time. And it's good to kind of have that confirmation, I guess. I keep telling people that there's a lot of us out here doing these jobs. And if something was really wrong, somebody would say something. Somebody would be out here being like, no. Don't let everybody sugarcoat it. Even the tone of your broadcasts wouldn't be as jokey and jovial as they are. I know it's easy for you and Scal. You have similar personalities. You want to, bust each other up a little bit. And you have that. But if there was something concerning about this team, I think it would come through in your voice, in Scal's voice. Now, Scal's had some games where he's like, I don't understand this. I don't understand what's going on. In fact, I was just before we were recording this, NBC Sports Boston was running a few of the recent games, and they're playing the game at Philly, where, Celtics get to come back from 20 whatever down.
Yeah.
And Scal's like, I just don't understand what's going on here. I don't understand what's going on with these guys. These guys, blah, 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 blah. And that's, aside from in those games, if something was really, really wrong, the tone in that would be, more, here we go again. I don't like the way we do this, or something like that. And when Scal is expressing surprise at bad performance, it's because he doesn't expect it. You don't expect it. I don't expect it. So if they're performing unexpectedly, and they're also showing us from time to time, oh, okay, this is what they're capable of doing, then I can reach no other conclusion than they just don't want to all the time. And you're right. If you're not hungry, you're not going to be fighting for the food. Joe talks about the lions and predators all the time. If a gazelle, if the lions have just eaten, gazelle can run by the lions. They're not going to get chased down and eaten. They're full, they're fat, they're happy. They're like, yeah, you guys, we'll get the next pass. We'll get one of you next time. And I think that's kind of where the Celtics are. They're fat and happy, and they also understand, man, we're doing this show in the middle of February. It's the All-Star break. We're 2/3 of the way through the season, but literally for the Celtics, this is the halfway point, because if they do what we expect them to do, they've played 50, 55 games at this point. They may play another 55 to get to where they want to go. So this really is their halftime. The season's going to end for a lot of teams pretty soon. it's not going to end for the Celtics pretty soon. They need this break. This is their halftime, so they can kind of like get themselves back. So I'm glad to hear that you have not expressed any concern, even as an employee of the team and owner of a championship ring.
Well, let me just say real quick, that if you just watched that Philly game, you might have heard it. That was probably the most frustrated I think the two of us have been watching a game all season. Because it just didn't make sense. And I actually give Scal a lot of credit. People think that the Celtics broadcast is extremely homery. I don't think it is at all, to be honest with you. I mean, Scal says we, but outside of that, like, I think he's pretty honest about the team.
I would agree.
So we were, I mean, and Scal obviously knows 100 times more about the game than I do, so he could see it on a deeper level. But it didn't take a genius to see that the Celtics just weren't guarding, and to be honest with you, John, we're not playing as hard as they could have. And then they turned it on and blew him out of the gym. It's like, if we could do that, why don't we start like that?
Yeah.
So that game was frustrating, but I feel like ever since then they have been really locked in.
For the most part, yeah. I think they've had some moments, but they're supposed to be playing like their best basketball down the line, not right now. One of the most interesting things that I think Scal said, you asked him a question about, I forget if it was in that game, because I was kind of in and out on the rebroadcast today. But you asked him some kind of question about, like, is it tough to get up for some of these games? Is it tough, like, like the flipping the switch question. I love that Scal was like, I don't know, because I never had that luxury. And like, that was so telling, because a guy like Scal never, like, if he was getting in at the end of games or pressed into service, like he did get, some starts here and there. If he wasn't ready, then there was never going to be a chance for Doc to be like, you know what, let me go to Scal one more time here, because maybe he'll be ready this time. Like, he always had to be ready. It's not like Paul Pierce, who, excuse me, could be like, yeah, I'm not feeling it today, I'm going to go out there, but whatever. It's not like Doc was going to bench Paul, right? It's not like, Joe Mazzulla is going to bench Tatum or Brown, even though Tatum probably should take a day off here or there. Like, I'd love for the Celtics to be like, no, Jayson, you are inactive today. You have no say in this matter. What's he going to want? Is he going to ask for a trade? Like, no, it's just one day, like, piss him off. Okay, so he's pissed off one day. It's for the best. Like, chill. But he never, like, it's like asking Peyton Pritchard, or any of those guys, like, pick a guy at the end of the bench. Like, you have to be, like, call them the stay ready guys for a reason. So I think, and we're probably past the playing down portion of the schedule anyway, but I think Joe probably should have dipped into, like, less minutes for Tatum in some of these games, like play Pritchard more, or play some of the bench guys more, or maybe maybe the team needed to sit Jaylen or Jayson a little bit more, so you could play shorthanded and be forced to get up for certain games. You know what I mean? I think limiting, if I have one concern, it's the same concern that I've had for the past 3 years. It's never come to pass. But, Jayson's minutes, Jayson plays a lot of minutes. He's played some whole entire second halves.
Yeah.
Which tells me that Joe's been like, okay, I've had enough of this messing around here. Like, I know you guys probably don't want to play hard, but we got to win these games. We got to get some of these wins, because, at some point you don't want to make losing the habit. So it's just interesting to see that approach. I don't know what to expect moving forward, but I do think that we're past the playing down portion. We'll see what happens moving forward.
Well, I think you're onto something there. The trend all season, and Scal's been talking about this a lot, is the Celtics are actually better when they're missing a couple of guys.
Yeah.
And part of that is what we talked about earlier with, working Porzingis back into the fold. It was a little clunky at the start, but for the entire season, it does seem like when the Celtics are fully healthy, there's an element of, all right, we're way better than this other team. We can roll, we can cruise.
Yeah.
And that gets you beat in the NBA. So when they are missing a couple of guys, like whether it's, the guy at the top, Tatum, taking on more responsibility, or Pritchard getting extra minutes, and he's always going to be ready. He's never not going to play 100%. For whatever reason, the Celtics are better with some guys out. But I'm also with you that that's not going to be the case all season. I think now that Porzingis is fully meshed in and we're going to be past the All-Star break, I think you're going to see them hit a level that, nobody else can match, to be honest with you. Maybe Oklahoma City, but that's it.
Yeah. Let's wrap this up. I want to ask a couple more broadcasting questions. Is there anything that has surprised you about doing this job?
Well, it was, it's the first time I've ever felt real scrutiny. And I think pretty much anybody who's, been a professional for 5-10 years or more can relate to that, where, you leave school and you get your first job and you're excited and you feel like you're good at it and like you found what you're supposed to be doing. And, you get a break. Like I went to ESPN right from local news in Alabama. And I'm like, this is great. I feel like, the arrow's pointing up, and then get the Celtics job. It's the job of a lifetime. Still can't believe it. But last season, like taking heat, I never went through that, and I struggled to deal with it at the start. Like people tweeting at me and saying things on the radio, which doesn't affect me anymore, for the record. But it was new and challenging last year. So I guess that was a bit of a surprise, but it's a lot better this season. That's why I say I'm more comfortable and at ease. And if our broadcast isn't for somebody, then, that's okay. We can't please everybody. It's a little bit like being a politician, right? You can't make everybody happy at the same time. So
That's true.
We do our best.
I really do think you guys do a good job. I'm not just saying that because you're on the show. I do think you guys do a good job. And I do agree. Like, of course there is some level of homerism, right? Because you are the home broadcast team and you get excited when the Celtics do good things. Like you're capturing the mood. But I do think like Scal is I know it probably pisses some people off where he's like, oh, that's a horrible call. Oh, no, wait, no, that actually was a good one. That was a good one. Like I know people love to like hate the refs, and I get it. Because they do some mind-boggling things sometimes. But Scal is really good at like seeing a replay and go, oh, nope, I was wrong about that. Or,
right.
Capturing the frustration. And I think you guys work well together. Again, I think your personalities mesh. I think you're a solid guy. I'll say you're a solid dude, man. You're just
I'm fooling him, everybody. Fooling him.
So it works. So, no, I think it's going great. All right. Thanks a lot, man. I do appreciate you coming on.
Johnny, thank you, brother. I will see you in a week, and I'll be way tanner the next time you see me.
Love it. Thanks to Drew. Always fun having him on the show. And thanks for you listening. I really do appreciate you being here and supporting the podcast, trying to give you some fun stuff to listen to or watch during the All-Star break. Games will be coming back before you know it, so I'll be back to my regular grind. I'm still here Monday through Friday, so make sure you are subscribed. If you want to get in on the mailbag, I'll be doing a mailbag next. That mailbag is at johnkaralis.com/mailbag. That's the only way I take questions. So johnkaralis.com/mailbag to submit your questions. I'll make that tomorrow's show. So please do that. And then I would love it if you get to the YouTube page, get into the comment section, and then share the podcast. Tell everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.